Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined us today. I am Disha Lakhanpal, the Marketing Manager of Emerald Publishing. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Before we begin or invite the main speaker for today's session, I would just like to give a few housekeeping tips. Now, the orange arrow on the panel on your right opens and closes the control panel. So please use that to create more space and your view will be better. You can change your audio option from your computer to your phone anytime that you want. All the attendees' microphones are muted. We apologize due to the number of people here. We will be unable to unmute everybody. So if during any time during the session, if you have any questions for the presenter, we request you to use the questions tab or the chat tab to please post it. At the end of the session, we are going to take the questions and answers and respond to all of them, or as many as we can if time permits us. This presentation is being recorded. The recording of the session as well as a certificate of attendance will be given to everybody who's available on today's session. With that, it comes to an end to all the housekeeping tips that we had to give you. Ma'am, Mrs. Shalika Ratnasuri, ma'am, I invite you to please introduce the speaker for today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Disha. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to the 5th session of Research Mentoring Workshop as an extension to the Writing Impactful Research Program and a post-conference engagement of ICMR 2021 conducted by the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka in collaboration with Emerald Publishing and the Gulf Medical University, Ajman, UAE. With great respect, let me first welcome the main speaker of today's session, Dr. Jagroop Singh, Assistant Professor at the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University, Ajman. Today, he is discussing the topic, how to write the conclusion, implications, and future directions of your manuscript. With gratitude, let me also welcome Professor Atula Jnanapala, Dean, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Then with gratitude, let me welcome Professor Jayantha and Devasiri, the main coordinator of the workshop series, and also Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Publishing Relationship Manager from Emerald Publishing. In fact, they contributed a lot in numerous ways to make this mentoring workshop a success. Then with gratitude, let me also welcome Ms. Disha Lakhanpal, Regional Marketing Manager, Emerald Publishing Group. Then with great respect, I would like to welcome all the distinguished participants from Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University and Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. At last but not the least, the respected audience, mainly our academics from all the universities worldwide, the senior professors, senior lecturers, students and researchers are welcome to the program for making this session lively. Now, I would like to introduce the main speaker of today's session, and it's a great pleasure for me to announce him. Dr. Jagroop Singh is an assistant professor for operations management at the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University, Ajman, UAE. He earned his Ph.D. degree with Financial Assistantship Scholarship from the Government of India under the Technical Education Quality Improvement Program. He is associated as postdoctorate researcher with Putra Business School, University of Putra, Malaysia. He is contributing to the society through his teaching and research commitments for the last 10 years. Dr. Singh's research area is in the domain of quantitative techniques, operations, and supply chain management with current research issues like supply chain management, healthcare operations, and aviation sustainability. He has published in journals of international reputed ABDC, Scopus, SSCI, and serves as a reviewer for various international journals. He also managed editorial responsibilities with Scopus Index Emerald Series, review of management literature. So it's over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shanika, for introducing me to my learned colleagues and with the audience. So let me share my presentation. Thank you, Disha. Okay, so we're going to start the session, but is this the end as the slide says? No, it's not the end. It's not the right time. We will finish this session, but this is a start of a discussion about how to end your manuscript by writing conclusions, implications, and future directions of your manuscript. As my learned colleagues and the previous panelists, they have discussed the various sections of a manuscript. Dr. Amila discussed about the introduction. Dr. Sudhir Rana talked about the literature review, how to write literature review, how to identify those gaps. Then we have Professor Jayanta, who talked about how to justify your methodology. In the last session, we have Dr. Amit, who discussed about results and discussion, how to present your results and discussion. At this point, anyhow, sometimes the new researchers or the first time authors, they feel that, okay, the work has been finished. But I would say the work has not been finished. You have to give it a rightful conclusion, rightful destination is to be sent to. Rightful destination is directed to. So let's start. So what are the expected learning outcomes from today's session? I will start with what exactly the conclusions are. Then I will give you a brief about the good ingredients of a good conclusion and why conclusions are important and do's and don'ts of conclusion. So when it comes to conclusion, first of all, we get confused like, okay, when we say abstract and when we say conclusions, comes to our mind that, okay, this is the summary of what we have done. So the first question from my side is how conclusions are different from abstract. As we have written different articles, also we have written many of research scholars, they have to write their thesis. In those also we have that summary chapter and a conclusion chapter. So what's the difference? The difference is in the approach. Difference is in what the section is addressing to. A conclusion is similar in certain context with the abstract, like we require it to be short, we require it to be crisp, we require it to be very impactful. Whereas your abstract talks more about what has been done, whereas your conclusion is discussing what's next. When we have achieved what we desired, what we framed as a question, what we framed as objective, now what's next, that part comes in conclusion. So conclusion is a synthesis of the study, usually answering the hypothesis reported in the final paragraph of the introductory section, solving the study objective. Now next question is the conclusion and discussions same, or conclusion is just summary of your discussions? You might have learned this in the previous session of this webinar series that, okay, what to write in discussions. Discussions are mainly your interpretations of your results, and then you discuss those results in the light of existing literature. What literature you have presented in your introduction or in your literature review section to develop those gaps, to develop those questions. So you, in the light of that literature, you try to relate your results to. You focus on either looking at the aspect whether they are in line with what other authors or the previously published studies are stating, or whether they are opposing those results. Are they opposite to those results? Then we try to give a proper justification. Whereas conclusion is take some part from your introduction, the last part where from where we started, the objectives, the statement, and then we recapitulate your discussion part, the important section of your results. What are important outcomes of our results? So these are both things collectively formulate an effective conclusion. So what exactly conclusion is? So it is a concluding remark, quick reflection of your research problem, and a quick summary of what have been done, what you have achieved. It highlights your achievements, also stating few limitations you might have faced while accomplishing your work. So as a good ingredients of your conclusion, I have defined it in 4 sections. The first one is your wrap-up section. Like I said, that you will discuss where you started from, what you have attained, what are the important outcomes from your results. Then you have implications of those outcomes. This implication part is very important. This reflects the importance of your work. Although we defined our objectives, we have achieved our objectives through study, there may be some hypotheses which are not proved, but what has been proved or what is not proved, how that will influence, what impact it will have on the other researchers, how they can take lead from it, how the practical community or the managers can take lead from your work to and implement it in their context. Then we have limitations followed by the future scope. So why conclusions are important? In the previous sections, you discussed that, okay, we start with the introduction, we have solid literature review, we have a strong methodology, then we have written a well-drafted results and discussion section. So why conclusion is important? Like if we consider all the previous sections as pearls and the theme of your research as a string of, and you are putting those pearls on a string, you cannot wear that necklace unless and until you join both ends. So conclusion is a opportunity to make the ends join, and it addresses the issue what's next. Nowadays when we start reading papers, so first thing, how we read an article, there may be a 3-pass approach. Like we have the first pass, you will be just looking at the subject, shortlisting that article. Then you may have second pass where you will be looking at the structural aspects of that article. You may read that article for understanding, and in the third pass you will look at the article, that what are the flaws, what are the limitations, where the gaps are. However, when I advise my scholars or my students, master students, I ask them to follow a bottom-up approach. Other than the abstract, if they have to read anything before shortlisting an article, I advise them to choose conclusion. Because conclusion is a point where, other than reflecting the importance of your study, it is also giving you future directions. So this is very important aspect. Nowadays, if we look at that, just publishing is not enough. You have to look for the citations, how people are using your work. That work, when people will be identifying the usefulness of your work, they will check the conclusion part, and then they may follow in the upward direction, or they can start from the initial, that introduction, and then moving again to the downward direction. So conclusions form an important constituent of a manuscript, and it has a significant contribution in expressing the importance of your work. As a first-time authors or a budding researcher, we often face few challenges when we are in the process of writing a manuscript, in the process of writing conclusions. The first thing is how to structure our conclusion. Second is how much to write. Every journal is having some word limit, so it is often very difficult for first time authors that how much we should write in conclusion. Then what are do's and don'ts, what we should follow, what should we avoid while writing the conclusion section. So the first part, how to start. Every journal, they have their own set format. Those formats are changing from time to time. If we will go back 5 years or 10 years, we will see at that time they were following a different pattern or different structure of the article. If we look at their recent publications, we will find that okay, there are some changes in their structure in comparison to what they were doing earlier. So I suggest that for starting writing your manuscript and your conclusion, you should first refer to the author's guidelines provided by the journal. It will give you a brief idea that what are their expectations, what are their limitations you should keep in mind. Then the second advice is to go download few recent articles of that particular journal. That will give you clarity that what is their structure. Whether if we look at few journals, they have just one conclusion section in which they are writing the authors are writing their conclusion part, one paragraph of conclusion followed by their implications, and then they have limitations and future scope. Whereas if you look at other journals, they are following, some journals they have separate sections for your conclusion followed by a section for your implications followed by a section for your limitation and future scope. Some journals they may prefer having one conclusion section and subsection of implications in it and another subsection of future scope. So that will vary from journal to journal. So my advice for you is to go, first step is to go with the author's guidelines available on the homepage of the journal. The second step is to find out 2 latest articles at least and check how they are structuring their manuscript. The next dilemma in our mind writing first time is how much to write. We have seen that okay, when it comes to journals, there are word limits. They are very specific for their word limits. Some journals, if we look, they have a limit like Journal of Supply Chain Management, International Journal of Supply Chain Management, so it has a limit of 12,000 words. Other management journals, they are having a word limit of 8,000 only. And if we go by the medical journals, they have a word limit of 2,500 to 4,000, and maximum they will stretch it to 5,000, 5,500. So first thing, you go check those guidelines. That guidelines will guide you that what is the word limit, and it will help you to structure your article in the right way. Based on those guidelines, the word limit which is prescribed by the journal, you need to devote certain word limit to each section. So for your reference, I have given a percentage based word limit, although the structuring the word limit which I am presenting here, that is based on a journal preferring 8,000 word limit because that is more generally accepted word limit. But otherwise also you can go by the percentage and you should devote that much word limit to each section. So abstracts are normally varying from 150 to 250 words. Then we have introduction. It is the foundation of your research, what is known, already existing, so that you should write down in 500 to 600 words or in a word limit, total 10% of your total word limit. Then what is known and how and why should we fill the gap? That is your literature review and identification of gaps, sometimes developing your own framework, presenting your framework. So that should vary from 800 to 1000 words, or we can say 15% to 20% of your total word limit. Then methods, if you are not writing a methodological article, if you are not introducing any new methodology, then it should be crisp. So it should be 500 to 600 words, that is 10% to 50%, 15% of your total word limit. Next, we have results and discussion section. Whatever we have done till now, whether it was introduction, it was your literature review, you identified those gaps because those were existing. Then methodology, you might be borrowing that methodology from someone else. But this result and discussion is the important part. This is what you are contributing to. So more weightage is given to this section of your study, that is 2000 to 3000 words you can devote. You can have sections, subsections, table, figures, graphs, whatever you find that this is more, this justify my results, and this is more expressive in a crisp manner. So you can use all those features. So word limit will be 2000 to 3000 words, varying from 20 to 35% of your total word limit. Then comes conclusion. So conclusion, if we talk about just the wrap up section of the conclusion, it should be like abstract, short and crisp, 150 to 250 words. Then, as we are discussing, that conclusion is a broader term in which we have implications, we have future scope, limitation of our study. So the total word limit must be within 15 to 20% of the total word limit which is available. And then you will have your references. So that will vary from context to context. For few studies, there will be very limited studies available, so the references will be less. For others, you need to identify what are the significant studies which I need to cite and what can be excluded. Now coming to conclusions do's. So first of all, if I say the conclusion is a summary, I would say no, it is not a summary. It is a synchronized synthesis of whatever you have done, where you started from and what you have achieved. Synchronization and synthesis of these two parts. In conclusions, you may not be required to write your methodology, but where you started, what was the issue. Every manuscript starts with an issue, like the gaps you identify, the objectives you frame, hypothesis you present. So you need to have restate your hypothesis or the research questions in conclusion. Then you must restate your major findings. It is not required that you write everything, whatever was there in your discussion part, whatever was there in your results. Everything is not required to be put in conclusions, but only the major findings of your results should be presented in conclusions. Then you must emphasize on the importance of this outcome. Why those are important. Tell the readers what contribution your study has made to the existing literature, how it will be useful for the industry people, right? Then highlight any limitations and state future directions for research, that is your recommendations. And what we should not be doing, it is not necessary at all to start your conclusion with the in conclusion or in summary like terms. It is more important that you stick to your theme, you present your theme well, you present your issue, that question well, and it should not be the repetition of the same statements which you are putting or you are borrowing from your text, already written results, already written introduction section. So it should be a new, it should give a feeling of a newness, crispness, and impactful it should be. There should be no repetition of statements, avoid repetition of statements, because that will be boring for the reader to read those statements twice or thrice in the same manuscript. It is not the right place to introduce the new arguments. You have deliberated the things in your discussion section. You have discussed your results in detail. So this is not the right platform. This is not the right section to introduce new arguments. Neither it is a good platform to introduce new idea. Stick to your theme, stick to your issue, stick to your problem, your question. Then if you fail to include your research question, so this may not be very handy for the first time reader to get an fair idea of what you were doing. Like I told you that I advise students to shift directly from abstract to conclusion. So they may miss that part what you are trying to do. And you should not fail to state the major results. Like this is one of my recent publication I have in Social Responsibility Journal. So who should hold the baton of aviation sustainability? My research area or my research inclination is more towards sustainability. So we have conclusions. So let me show you this in research article. So if you see that this much is these 2-3 statements are developing the base that what I was trying to do, right? The aviation industry is committed to contributing to global sustainability goals. Realizing the immediate concerns, several stakeholders have started a number of initiatives. However, due to large number of stakeholders at 3 decision levels, clarity of in the role and their domain of consideration is undefined. A clarity of stakeholder role is an important yet often overlooked aspect of aviation sustainability efforts. Whenever we look at sustainability, we go with a system approach that, okay, we need to be sustainable. These are requirements, but who will do what, that is not certain with that system approach. So this work studied the role of various decision level to have sustainable aviation. So best first method has been applied to estimate the relative weightage of decision making levels with respect to each factor related to fuel efficient sustainable aviation. Fuel efficiency is more towards environmental sustainability and towards the social. It relates to somehow to social sustainability also, and it is also economical to the airlines if they are fuel efficient. So in the analytical results, the highest weightage is given to the tactical level, followed by the operational level, and finally strategic level decisions to improve aviation fuel efficiency and reduce aviation emissions. These results point out towards the vital role of middle level hierarchy, that is aircraft manufacturers, airlines, and others in the aviation industry sustainable growth. Also, the success of any policy or mechanism like CORSIA. CORSIA is carbon offsetting and reduction scheme in aviation, relies upon the acceptability and commitment of the hierarchy's middle level. This middle level stakeholder must be inspired and empowered to act, and they moderate between the two levels. However, looking at it, we cannot diminish the importance of strategic operation level. They together accumulated a weightage of 0.59 higher than the tactical level. These results of the study confirm each decision level has a role to play in sustainability. So, aviation, in conclusions, the stakeholder cannot rest after passing the baton of the to other stakeholder, as each player is having their different role. Under such a demanding situation, the co-creation approach seems a way forward. They should all come together, define their roles, go back, do it, and that way it will be more easy and convenient for them to be sustainable. An understanding of decision levels and stakeholder roles can help shape a better approach in aviation sustainability. Now, this is another article by Joseph Sakis, one of the renowned researcher in the area, professor of Putra Business School and Hankin School of Economics. So he has written this article in 2020. So article title, as you can see, that it is Supply Chain Sustainability Learning from the COVID-19 Pandemic. This was based on the immediate literature which was published during that period, and then few of the interviews with the experts. So he has, if we look at this conclusion part, so he has given the situational analysis or situational introduction in the first paragraph. This is an unprecedented time. The world has rapidly reacted to the major crisis. Our previous institutions and worldviews have changed. This pandemic, with its remaining uncertainties and response will be the topics of discussion for the foreseeable future. The crisis and recovery period provides us the opportunity to observe and study how institutional changes can result in strategic and operational supply chain transformation. Although the limitations and fragility of global supply chain resilience occurred early in the pandemic, they also highlighted potential transition opportunities and evolution towards sustainability. Then he has discussed, in this article, he has discussed few journal themes. What will be the themes of the study, like technology, the implementation of advanced technology like big data, or the digitalization of the facilities to improve the visibility of your supplies. Then he advised that okay, we should be going for diversified sourcing rather than depending on one source. So these kind of suggestions were given in the initial phase of the study. Now coming to the implication part. So implications, as I told you, that this section discusses the importance of your work. It is the plan that how what you have achieved that will be applicable to your in managerial context, in your research context, as well as in your academic context. So when we talk about managerial implications, those are more practical in nature. Like we were just reading one article of Sarkis. So he was saying, as I told you, that he advised that the companies should have more than one suppliers. Like if that is the situation, so what are the managerial implications of such outcome? Is it very convenient for companies to shift from one supplier strategy to multi-supplier strategy? How they can go for near shoring or close shoring or back shoring, we can say. So what will be the cost associated? How it will impact the sustainability? How it will impact the environment? We have given the conclusion, but how advantageous it will be for the company to do it, how easily they can do it, and what will be the challenges with implementing those results that will come under the managerial implication. Then research implications. You may find, considering the same study, you may find that okay, in the past, as we were moving towards lean and just in time philosophies we were following, so we preferred having one supplier to reduce the cost, to have better negotiation power, to negotiate with the suppliers and to reduce the cost. But now when we are saying that okay, we must diversify, we must go with close shoring, or we must go with back shoring from offshoring context. So what will be the research, how the future researcher will take it, how they can take a lead from it, how it is important for the research community that I am shifting one theme from okay, single supplier to a multi-supplier. Then you have academic implications. So academic, we can talk, if our context is right, it can be used as a case study in a classroom teaching. If it is a pedagogy or educational pedagogy based study, we can say that this can be implemented in the academic context. It can be used in the policy making of the academic area. So with the same article, I have given the managerial implications, I have given the research implications. So the managerial implications were with the challenges of achieving sustainability, and the concept of co-creation was given. Then another recommendation for the policymakers is to convert sustainability goals into short-term goals. Rather than just having one 10-year plan, we can have small targets which should be given to the stakeholders, and when they achieve it, they must be encouraged, they must be forced to achieve it, and then next step should be taken. And in research implication, so this kind of integrated framework was not available earlier in the study. No one never deliberated in this way. This is very broad statement what I'm saying, that no one has ever done. We must refrain ourselves from making such statements, but this was missing context, so I try to plug it, and I have presented a model where different dimensions of sustainability or fuel efficient sustainable aviation were considered, and then I defined the role of different stakeholders. Now coming to the limitation section. So limitations, sometimes we also are very shy of talking about our limitations. But we must remind ourselves that when you are submitting a manuscript, the manuscript is scrutinized, those are reviewed by your peers who have much experience in the field, and there is nothing is there which is foolproof, which is complete in itself, and especially the research, there is always scope. We cannot fulfill all the requirements to the extreme in the same manuscript. So you should narrow down the limitations. Those must not be broad, out of context. You should clearly explain how it contributes to the knowledge or the theory building, your limitations, why these are required. In don'ts, you must not make a broader statement, like opposite to narrowing down. You must not, it must not be fantasizing, right? It is not the fantasy world that you can say anything which is out of context and it will work as a limitation. Don't make it too ambitious or hypothetical. It should not be very hypothetical or the things which are impractical, we can say. So limitations must be given. Every work is having limitations, so limitations can be coverage related. While formulating your framework, you might have excluded, because of any reasons, certain variables. You may have given a context which is narrow, but for generalization, a broader context, broader study is required. You might be using a methodology, like in one of my study or in one of our recent study, we are using AHP, analytical hierarchy process. So that process is in existence for a long time, but still people are using it. We have advancements, we have hybrid techniques available, we have best first method kind of technique available, but I may choose because it fits my criteria, it fits my requirement, it is easy for the respondent to respond to it, even if the number of comparisons is more. But as there are more advanced methodologies available, I may have chosen that also. We can have done a comparison also. So whatever I am choosing, there must be some limitations. There must be, when I'm using that methodology because it is easy to use, I may be ignoring some other aspects. So that should also be incorporated in your limitations. Generalization, when we write conclusions, those are more journal statements. But those journal statements, maybe my sample size is very small. My geographical area from where the samples were collected, that is very limited, right? So it is for better generalization or for generalizing those results, we may require a study at a larger scale. So generalization can be one limitation and you must put it in your limitation section. Sometimes when we are doing quantitative studies, so availability of specific data is a challenge. I will show you in my article. So in such a cases, we use proxy. Like I was not getting, I was doing some research on aviation fuel consumption. So I was not getting data for Indian Airlines regarding their fuel consumption. So what I did, I opted for going for the operational cost, because your fuel is one of the main constituent of operational cost. I easily got the data from DGCA, Directorate General of Civil Aviation in India's website, and I used it as proxy. But that has somehow not led me to what I was aiming to. In future, if anyhow I can get that data, I can give more specific results, more specific outcomes related to fuel consumption. So using of proxies can be one of the limitations. So accept the constraints, show your knowledge and ambitions. It is not just that, okay, this is my weakness, I should hide it. It shows to the reviewers, to the editor, that okay, this person, he has thoroughly studied whether this is methodology, whether this is in context of the theme of this research article. He has a fair idea, he has thoroughly studied this theme. So although he is not able to implement everything in this manuscript, he knows about it and he knows where he is lacking. and he or she may show that okay, they are ambitious and they may do further research in coming times. Never claim that there are no limitations. There is nothing on this earth which is not having any limitations, right? And never state that time was the constraint. As a researcher, when we are formulating our research, we give due consideration to time frame. We are good planners, right? Somehow when we submit our manuscript, that take time because there are multiple stages, but otherwise when we plan our studies, we define that okay, this is the time frame I will do my literature review. After literature review, I will go for the data collection, right? This much time I will use for my data collection. Sometimes when we feel that we are lacking behind from the deadlines, so what we do, we infuse more resources, we involve more people for getting that data, we take help from our colleagues, we take help from our friends to complete it in time. So time should not be a constraint, whether that is a researcher or that is a PhD scholar. For PhD scholars specifically, they have a given time frame, they have to finish their work in that given time frame, so they have a complete chart of when to do what. So time should not be a constraint in your study. Then don't downgrade your limitations. Don't show that these limitations are very weak. What I have done, that is better. Limitations are limitations. Anyhow, we could not accomplish those. Anyhow, we are not able to implement those things. Those are our limitations. So we should not show them in a bad light that this is not required, or never try to justify the limitation. Justifying the limitations, like this approach, the best first method, although that is very good, or the advanced hybrid technique, although those are very good, I am using this technique and that is better. That is better in few contexts, but not in all the contexts. So don't justify the limitations. Accept those your limitations humbly, and you will sail through. Like this is the article I was talking about, where I have used a proxy. So this article was published in Journal of Air Transport Management, and the title of the article was What Drives Indian Airlines Operational Expense, an Econometric Model. So I start with acknowledging the limitation of my research. This study is focused on operational cost efficiency and was limited only to operational expense. In future research, the revenue component can be incorporated to analyze the airline's profitability. I have not considered it, but I am saying I am converting my limitation to as a base for future researchers. In addition, fleets of various airlines consist of aircraft from different aircraft families. Hence, it will be interesting to know the effect of fleet mix on airline operational cost. Also, due to less number of observations, a comparison between low-cost carriers and full-service carriers is not computed in this study. However, researchers can explore these options to achieve insight into the role of business model on operational expense per revenue kilometers of airlines. We believe that this study lays a foundation for future investigation into this concern. So we simply, the limitations are acknowledged, those are converted into future scope, and that's it. Let's see another article, the AHP entropy based priority assessment of factors to reduce aviation fuel consumption. So in future, researchers can validate the factors and sub-factors proposed in this study using statistical method. This I have done using AHP entropy technique. So a more SEM model can be developed out of it, or other statistical methods can be used to analyze it in a more specific context. Moreover, to make the study more generalizable, the results from specific expertise can be compared with each other. In this study, what I have done, I obtained responses from a mixed group of respondents. I have few engineers, I have few pilots, I have few managers, I have few respondents from ATC. So that was a mixed group of respondents. But it is very obvious that whenever I will ask someone from a specific expertise, that okay, which one is important. So he will explain it more clearly that how my role is important, and then collating that will give you a more generalizable, more specific information. Further studies can focus on a single factor and include more levels in the hierarchy for the respective factors. Also, the hybrid AHP entropy technique in this study can be tested in different contexts as its use as reported in the literature is limited to few studies. Now, summing up. So what are the conclusions? Whatever we have done, so based on that, I try to expand this term conclusion as accumulation of new claims leading to unique solutions impacting ongoing novel issues. So aim of a conclusion is to answer that what's next. So what, right? So our question that is answered by the conclusion is what's next. Citation of other scientific work. We give citations during extensive citations are given, or a large number of citations are given during literature and then during the your discussion part. But anyhow, if required, we can give citation of scientific work in your conclusion, but those should be very limited, 1, 2, or as required, but you should try to limit those. It should not that you can use any number of citations. It is not what you are relating to others' work, it is how you are concluding your work. Type of language, it should be short but impactful. And summarization. Summarization is high in this case. You are synthesizing and while synchronizing that theme, where you started, where we are moving, what we have achieved, how it will lead to future. And then the length part. As I told you in the start also, that it should be short, but it is not that it is the same word length as is given, or word limit which is given to your abstract will be applicable on conclusions, because this is showing the importance of your work. So we can have more words. The first paragraph for the wrap up should be short, same word limit as is given to abstract, 150 to 250 words. Then you should have a significant word limit dedicated for your implications. Those are more important. Your plan is more important. And then in last, you have your limitations and future scope. So in limitations, again, one paragraph will work, a short paragraph, same word limit 150 to 250 words will work for you. And more emphasis, I am repeating it again, that more emphasis should be given on the implications, because those are deliberating your importance of your work, how implicit is your work. So length, we are considering short in comparison to your results and discussion. So in summary, your conclusion, it is synthesis and not repeated summary. Don't repeat the bullet points. Don't use the same sentences. Keep it short and crisp. It's not a discussion part. Remember not to introduce new ideas and data. Implications, don't speculate widely on the possible future implications of your study. Don't stretch unnecessarily. And you must relate your implication to your theme only. To make it more, giving it a more larger picture, we should not say that, okay, this is applicable in every area. You might have chosen a specific segment. You must stick to that segment or to the nearby segments, but not to the whole sector. Limitations, acceptance is the key. First of all, don't believe that any work can be without limitations. Accept your limitations humbly and accept those, write clearly. Sometimes it is not just that your results will get you citations. Sometimes what you are showing as limitation of your work and the future scope, what future researchers can do, that can also get you few citations. So this you can use for the citations also. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. I will be happy to answer your queries. Disha? I think you're on mute, Disha. You're not audible.
Sorry, I've been talking on mute for some time. Lots and lots of questions. Now, the first question that we've received is, it says, hi, please guide us how to represent statistical results in empirical paper.
Statistical results in an empirical paper.
Yes.
So in conclusion sections, as you are getting some statistical results that may be proving or disapproving your hypothesis, so you should not go in detail in this conclusion section that okay, these are the values, this criteria was used, or this t-test was used, or some other statistical test was used. That is not the requirement. Whatever you have discussed in your discussion section, take a lead from it and make a journal statement in your conclusions. It is not required that you have all the information from discussion about those statistics, those figures in your conclusion section. That is not required at all. I hope I answered the query.
The next question is, without limitation, can we produce a paper?
Without limitations, as I just said, that although you may find that okay, in few articles they may not be using the specific word limitation, but still they will say that okay, this is the scope for future work. It has not been covered. That is the limitation. So without limitation, using the term limitation is not necessary. You can use any terms, but there will be no work. I personally believe that there will be no work which is complete in itself. So there will always be scope, and that scope will show your limitation.
The next question is, does the scope of future work come strictly at the end of the conclusion?
Yes, it should be strictly at the end of the conclusion, because that you are closing the loop. You started with a problem, you address that problem, you are making your statement, generalizable statement in conclusion, and then you are showing the path to the future researcher. So future scope should come at the end.
So the question is that under don'ts, time shouldn't be a limitation. Now, further explanation, if any research work got affected by a pandemic and hence expected outcome or the findings have weakened, how do you inform the audience to be fair to them? Of course, due to time related limitations.
Okay. We can consider a situation that okay, the person was going for data collection because of pandemic, he could not go. So in either you could choose a methodology, like you might have chosen structural equation modeling in which the data requirement is more. So you can, if it is applicable, if feasible for you, if it is within your frame, so you can change the methodology which can justify your limited data, and you can show that in future this can be done or at a larger scale because of this pandemic the work could not be completed. But if you will delay the publication, if you will delay putting it to the audience, so then maybe it will not be applicable in the later stage. Now if today I will submit something, because of pandemic I could not consult, or I am just developing because the scenarios are changing, I am developing a system dynamic model, and first COVID came, I developed a small model that okay, this is the way things will work. Then we have vaccination, I extended that model that okay, now the vaccination is there, so let me extend, then I will see the publication aspect. Then the vaccination is complete, now the booster dose is there, so that way the things will go on. So you need to confine it to at a point where you can justify with your work. If it is not justifiable, then it may not be accepted. You need to see that whether you can justify with your theme, with your issue or not, with which methodology you can do it, with how much data you can do it, that is a must requirement.
Thank you so much. I'll combine two questions now. Number one, which would be more important, managerial implications uh, or implications for theory, and in what order? And someone has asked, like, could we use recommendations in place of implications?
First thing, let me answer the second question first. Recommendations are different from implications, right? In implications, what you're talking about the importance. You're giving a plan, right? Recommendations are that how they should, what they should do. That can be part of, but it is not just about the recommendation. It can be about a proper plan in the implication, that how it should be done. Right? Recommending is you are just recommending that okay, you do it in the future. That is also a recommendation. But how it could be done, what will be the challenges, that is also part of, that also can be a part of your implications. Now coming to the first question, that is managerial and theory implications, theoretical implications. So both are different, we all know. And through research, what we try to do is try to strike a balance between our theory and the practical aspects. So both are different, and the sequence is not a must that okay, theory should come first or managerial implication should come first. The sequence can go anyway. But what work you are doing, and whether you have implication, it is not forcefully also that every time you should have managerial implications or every time you should have a theory based implication. Sometimes those may not be contributing that much to the theory, but yes, if you can relate it to theory, that will add value to your manuscript.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the difference between limitation and delimitation?
Okay, limitations are what are constraining you, right? And delimitation is that how that can be accomplished further. You are removing those constraints, like I have shown few limitations, and how they can do it in future, that can be a delimitation of the same limitation.
Okay. Now, the next question is, what is the difference between contribution, significance, and implication?
Okay. So contribution, significance.
Significance and implications.
Okay. So implications is what is, or the conclusion section in is what where you are talking about your significance or importance of your work, what you have accomplished, how it is important, right? So significance and importance are part of your conclusion section, and you are emphasizing more on it in implications, that how it will be implicable in theory, how it relates to theory, how it contradicts to theory, how it take the theory to other level, or how that can be implemented in the managerial aspects. So that when I say that okay, it can be implemented, it will reduce the cost, right? It will reduce the waste in the system. So that is the importance of it, right? I am signifying the importance of the particular outcome.
Thank you. Now, the next question is very long, so please give me some time to finish it. So the question is, when identifying practical implications of a study, we need to focus on findings individually or study as a whole. Now, the example that they give is that in a qualitative study on female travelers' risk experience, one finding would be using their body language to overcome the possible risks. As you think, does this finding have a practical implication to the tourism industry? But when you consider the study as a whole, it has practical significance to the tourism industry, isn't it? If you want me to repeat any part, please let me know.
Yes, it will be great if you can just repeat the last this case.
Yeah. So now, like they're saying that in a qualitative study, they're looking for the traveler's risk experience by looking at body language and how they overcome the possible risks. Now, the second part is, as you think, do you think the findings, when they're studying the body language, do you think the findings have a practical implication to the tourism industry? But when you consider the study as a whole, it has practical significance to the tourism industry.
Yeah, it is having a
So,
practical significance, but implications may not be that much in this case. Body language, you cannot, in this case, if you will see, you can, it is individual context, right? When we are considering tourism, so we are not just targeting the travelers who are having good body language, and we are excluding others. So it is having significance to avoid that risk, but that can be considered in the broader context in this specific example. So this thing will vary from case to case, whether you can go in minute details or you should look at the broader perspective. Yes.
right. The next question is, kindly advise what to do when the hypotheses are insignificant. Number two, what are the don'ts of limitations?
Okay. It is not a crime that if your hypotheses are insignificant. This is even good if you will report those insignificant hypotheses also, right? The insignificance may be because of different reasons, right? If I talk about any context of a product design, I will say that, okay, I am designing some, let's say, a treadmill. In treadmill context, requirement will be different. I will say that one hypothesis that, okay, in design, the height is related to the design part. Now it may be requirement is different. If I specify that height may be different for Indians, that height requirement may be different for Europeans, that height requirement may be different for Chinese citizens. So it is not a crime that, okay, if your hypothesis has been disapproved or that has come insignificant, so you should not report it. You should report it, and you should try to give a justification for it. Try to identify the justification why it has been found insignificant. Sometimes it may be because of limitation of the data. Sometimes there must be some backing reason. You must compare with the outcomes from where you are driving that hypothesis and try to relate it with that literature. What are the differences, and give a backing to your insignificant hypothesis, that why this has come insignificant in this context.
Thank you. Now, the next question is, due to journal word limits, authors are often unable to state results of all hypotheses in the conclusion. How to deal with this?
So it is not required that all the hypotheses are required to be put in the conclusion part. You can just have your important conclusion, like if you have hypotheses, these are the majors, or these are the most significant hypotheses which are proved, you can put those in your conclusion part, and rest you can exclude from the conclusion part. That is up to you how you customize, how you fit things in within those word limits. If you have 25 hypotheses, let's say you have a large study, you have 25 hypotheses. So even if you will write one sentence, it will be a long conclusion. So you need to identify which are important or significant hypotheses, and which are required to be there in conclusion, and which I can exclude. This is totally up to the author.
Thank you so much. Now, the next question is about this presentation. Is this method of writing conclusion, limitation, and implication applicable only to journal articles, or can we apply it to other academic write-ups like thesis?
Yes, you can. Only the word limit will change. Rest of the things will remain same. When we write thesis, the word limit will vary from university to university. In some universities, your thesis submissions are not required at all. Those are publication based presentations. You go for defense based on your publication. In some institution, they say that, okay, this much word limit is must. So then you just abide by those, divide it accordingly. That's why I have given the percentage, that you just use that percentage, divide those sections, and try to make it fit in that word, that much word limit.
Next question is, dear sir, implication and signification both are same. Meaning, please explain. Do both have the same meaning? Please explain.
Yes, both have the same meaning. In conclusions also, I told you that what we are trying to do, we are trying to reiterate, or we are trying to establish the significance of your work. From where you started, what you have achieved, that is showing the significance, and then further you are elaborating those in implication part, that how those will be applicable in industry or in academia.
So this is a follow-up of what we were having, talking about conclusion. Someone just wrote saying, have you come across structured conclusions just like structured abstracts?
When we say structured, in this presentation, I just gave you that structure, right? Even if you look at the abstract, in Emerald, we have those structured abstracts, but if you look at other publications, they just follow the paragraph. If you will read that paragraph, even the structure is same. Similarly, for your conclusion part, you will have same constituents. Sometimes they have, like I told, that you need to refer to author's guidelines or to the recent publication of your target journal. Sometimes they prefer having one paragraph. Even I have published articles where I have just one, or I have few paragraphs, like I have one paragraph of wrap up and followed by one or two paragraphs of implications, followed by a last paragraph of limitations and future scope. So it is structured in itself. It is not that only when you will have headers, then it will be termed as structured. It is structured only there is variation in how they are requiring it.
Next question we have is it important to write the limitation in structured literature review, SLR?
Structured literature review.
Systematic literature review, sorry.
Systematic literature review. In literature review also, earlier people were of the perception that there is no methodology of literature review, right? But with time we came across that, okay, we can define the methodology, we can define the time frame, we can define that, okay, this was our search criteria. I only searched these keywords, I only visited these resources. So that can be a limitations that you can use as a limitation if you are doing a systematic literature review for 10 years. Maybe the past one, you could have done this for 20 years also. You set that criteria, that is acceptable, but limitation you can define in that way. You can define it in the search way also. If I am doing it as a for a systematic literature review for supplier selection for last 10 years, so the things have changed in the recent times. So what was there in 10 years back, so that I am not considering, right? So that way you can give the limitations of your systematic literature review also.
I'm just trying to read the next question. 1 second.
Yes, please.
I'm not able to make sense of it. I hope I'm reading it is as it is. If maybe we might need further explanation. It's important, robust, to consider to our research. And what's the difference between robust and reliability?
Okay. Robust in this terms, when we are talking about your results and discussions, so robustness is more about what kind of design you were using, whether your methodology or your research design is foolproof or not, right? Or there are some biases. And then when it come about reliability, we have different measures of reliability that we can go through. Also, from where I am collecting the data, whether those sources are reliable or not. If I am talking about sustainability of aviation sector, of civil aviation sector, if I will go and collect data from the defense aviation, will that be a reliable result for my study? No, it will not be reliable.
Next question is that in SLR, as we have not completed our research, if we include future scope, will it be okay?
When we do SLRs, so definitely we are identifying themes, we are identifying what the practices earlier, what were the current practices, so that way we can show that okay, these are the themes. Like Sarki's article we just looked at during this presentation. So in the article itself, when he was discussing, he has given the themes for future research, so that way future scope can be given in the systematic literature view also.
Right.
That these are identified themes, there are some laggings, those can be further exploited.
We have last 3 questions, so so I thought I'd just let you know. Okay, the question is, hi, how academic implication could be different from theoretical contribution?
Okay, theoretical implications is when you can relate it with a theory. There are different theories in every stream. We have contingency theory, we have resource-based theory. So when I'm talking about theoretical implications, so I am more about relating it to the theory, existing theory, advancement of that theory. When I say that, okay, those can also be part of same section, but specifically to academic, I will say that how this will be applicable in academia. Whether a person can use this to teach their student that okay, this is the advancement, this is the progress they have done, this is like a case study if we have on in any context, that can be easily used. Nowadays when we are publishing our research articles, then also we are sometimes considering some cases that okay, this is the case industry I am considering, I am applying it to. So whether that can be used in academia or not, that can be more specifically, that can be academic part of it. Otherwise both will come under the your theoretical or your academic implication.
So next question is, oh, we have got some new questions. 1 second. I'm lost which question I was reading. Okay, some paper published do not have limitations. Is it mandatory to give limitations? I think someone asked a similar question before this, but let's see.
No issues. See, if you will follow, like we were asking for some of this participants, they were asking about the structure. So in structure, limitations is part of, and as a new budding researcher, we should show limitations. You might be referring to article which was invited publication or invited submission by an expert in that field. They may present it other way, they may put it in between, they may show scope otherwise, but for a new researcher, I recommend to you to include limitations. Even for the established researchers or academicians, if we will see the number of references which they use very limited references because they have their own rep. For a new researcher, we have to back our statements with proper references, proper citations.
Okay, next question. Hello, Professor. Is it important to write future directions of study, as there can be many directions to conduct study further, which should be mentioned in our studies or in our research?
Yes, you should. As I told you, that will be a foundation for other researchers to build on. Yes, the flaws of or the limitations of your work are there, they can identify it, but that will give them a right path that okay, this is the way they can implement or they can explore it more. So limitation, as you are sorry, future scope, as you are saying, that it can go in many directions, so you should confine it to your area, to your theme. It should not be very broad in context.
Right. The next question is, conceptual, theoretical, empirical models, are they the same? Is this will give equal importance as mathematical models?
Mathematical models, they are a bit different, but otherwise conceptual, theoretical, you can consider those as same. Those are based on theory or built on theory. So mathematical model, you can have a mathematical equation, like I just presented one regression equation. So that also we term it as a model, that okay, there are some dependent variables, there are independent variables. So those are different. And yes, not in managerial part, but yes, in if we go in engineering, look at the engineering counterpart. So there, the mathematical models are more considered more relevant in engineering and your sciences. Your mathematical models are given more importance to rather than the conceptual frameworks.
Thank you. So this is the last question that we have for today's session. I am not sure if you want to take this. If not, I will answer this question. How much time is it taking to publish a category journey? Publish a category journey.
Okay, a category journal. First of all, there is no such time span requirement mentioned by the journals, nor
Yes.
anyone will not be in position to answer this. If you are consistent in your work, you may complete one article in 6 months, 4 months. But if you are not consistent, you are targeting a category journal, and you are not doing anything, it will not take you anywhere. That's what I can say. I have communicated, so sometimes it takes time. After span, you can even predict when you made the submission. But before that, how much time an individual will take to accomplish that work, that can't be measured, or that can be narrated. You can also add your part.
Yes. If we are only talking about timelines when it has been submitted to a journal, I can answer that. If you look at all the journals, this is a tip that we give to a lot of researchers. If you go open a journal, look at the volume, you will see in a single volume how many articles come out or how many volumes come out in a year. So if one journal gets 12, let's say there are 12 volumes coming out in a year, that means they are actually submitting, they're actually pushing out one volume every month. And if you look at the number of articles that they are publishing, that shows you how many papers they will accept. And there is something called an early cite. Now, I'm sure a lot you would know, but I will just reiterate. Early cite are articles that have been accepted, but they have not been given a date of publication or a volume or a journal number yet. So what happens is that once that is associated, so you know how many articles are pending, you know the frequency of that article, that journal, how many they are going to publish in a month or a year. So you can know how many are pending to get. That means that there are already booked so many future volumes and issues. So you can then calculate that, okay, there are still 4 issues to go with 6 papers each. Oh, then in the 5th issue my paper will get, if it gets accepted and published. So usually, that's how you can calculate the timeline of any journal, so to speak, that is going on. But rest, getting your research done, that is up to you, how much time it's going to take, your data collection, you're finally writing it, you're proofreading, you're submitting it, getting through reviews, all of that does take time. But yeah, just to calculate how much a journal is going to take time to publish a paper, you can do that calculation by looking at the frequency in which it publishes and how much early cite articles it has in the backlog. So you would know when your article will get accepted or how much more it is in the pipeline. So that's about it for my.
Early cite is there, acceptance rate is there, right? How many articles?
Yes.
What is the probability of getting accepted, right? And then it takes 1 review, 2 review, 3 review. That will depend again. That reviewing process is volunteer service, so that doesn't have a fixed time frame. So this is all about publication. This, although we can't be specific, but we can predict it. But creating an article, so that will vary from individual to individual. So that can't be predicted anyhow.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. I'll tell you, there have been multiple other comments where they said the session was really nice, very helpful, wonderful session. So I had to sift through all of that to get to the question answers, but it was very interesting. Thank you so much. I'll just take a quick minute to give a little vote of thanks. I, Disha Lakhanpal, on behalf of Emerald Publishing and Gulf Medical University and the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, I extend a very, very hearty vote of thanks to the main speaker of today's session, Dr. Jagroop Singh from the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University, Ajman, the UAE. It was indeed a very insightful and informational session, sir, to have covered how to write the conclusion, implications, and the future directions of your manuscript. At the onset, I would like to give my gratitude to Emerald Publishing, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and Gulf Medical University for their unconditional support in conducting this program. In particular, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Sundar Radhakrishnan, who is the Vice President of South Asia Emerald Publishing, Professor Atula Gyanapala, Dean of Faculty of Management Studies, and Professor M.S.M. Aslam, the Chairman of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. I would also like to express our sincere obligations to the organizing committee who have been helping us, through all of this. In particular, support rendered by Ms. Sangeeta Menon, the Publishing Relationship Manager at Emerald Publishing, Professor Sudhir Rana, Associate Professor at the Gulf Medical University, for the support that they have rendered in making each of these sessions a great success. And then I would like to thank all the distinguished officials from Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, and Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the audience who have been with us since the beginning till the end, and people who have been attending these sessions, all the researchers, industry participants, students, the media presenters, Sunday Observer, for the active participation. Thank you all once again. We will meet again, but on the 5th of October with another session, and I hope you all have a great week ahead. Thank you so much, Dr. Jagroop Singh, once again, and thank you so much, audience, everybody, for being here today. Thank you. See you all next week.
And thank you for the wonderful questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.